Hi, Homeworthy. I'm Hill Rondero. Welcome to my house in Charlotte. Let me show you around.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story.
Hey, my name is Hill Rondero. I am the principal designer and owner of Row House Studio in Charlotte. Welcome to my home. We found this home in 2021. Our home was a cottage and it was feeling a little tight, and I never shy away from an interior design renovation project. And so it was kind of time to let go of our past project, and we started looking. And this home is unique because this neighborhood is called the Cloisters, which is basically a big loop that was built in the 50s. This house went on the market, and interestingly, it had never been touched. It had two owners, built in 56, and it had so much charm that I saw initially, but my favorite thing that drew me to the house was it had a beautiful original clay roof, and it was built so well that the beams that run through the attic, of course I came to look at it and I was just taken because of just the bones of the house, knowing that it would renovate beautifully. And so a lot of people, I think, shied away from this house, and it sat for a while, so I feel like it was meant to be. But we did do a huge gut renovation on it. It's very unassuming from the drive up. It's a ranch and it kind of looks very linear. And then you walk in and I think people kind of are shocked by just the ceiling heights and kind of how we've played with the architecture on the inside. This phase of life for us is different because we have 3 kids and 2 are away now. So I think the way that we live in the house is a little bit different than in our past homes. So we're kind of experimenting with, we're not quite empty nesters, but my husband and I, treat this as like the one level thing, and it kind of feels like a condo in a way that we're kind of, we can envision staying here actually, and I don't like to stay anywhere too long, but we can envision staying here and having grandchildren here. The way we've kind of set it up, it feels like it could be long term. I feel like the style is collected, livable, and vintage inspired. And if I can add one more thing to that, I would say there's a modern edge everywhere you look. So it's a balance between these vintage pieces. It's lots of neutrals and textures, but overall it has a livable feel. As we walk through, you'll kind of see there's continuity throughout the house. Every space has some vintage. Every space has some European flair, where it's maybe a vintage French side table or tons of vintage artwork. But the idea is that it's sort of untucked, and the neutrals and the textures help it feel interesting, and the people kind of bring the color and the artwork. So that theme is kind of present throughout the whole house. So it's just a balance of all those things mixed. Welcome to the entry of our home. We have kind of a collected experience as you come into the entry to kind of give you a sample of what you're about to see. So I feel like it's a microcosm, but we have this vintage, beautiful armoire, small scale, that we've brought in, and it's kind of styled with a lot of things that you'll see throughout the home. So neutrals and textures. You can see we kind of have little sculpture. You'll see lots of ceramics throughout the house. I love black and white photography, so I'm kind of showing a little bit of that, but we kind of change it as the seasons change. It's just kind of a little vignette for us to have fun and kind of give a sample of what's to come in the space. With the lighting, we went with a mid-century chrome piece from First Dibs. So one of the things that we really loved about this house were both fireplaces. We kept the original facade. So this is an original stone that we have kind of lime washed a bit just to kind of let the texture come through, but it wraps around into the family room, and it's kind of the framework for the fireplace that we sit by every day. And then this is where you're starting to really see the shift in the house, where we vaulted the ceilings up. They were 8-foot ceilings throughout the house. And so to maintain kind of the integrity of the original house, we kept the front original windows, and then instead of going really high on these windows out to the terrace, we've kind of brought them to an 8-foot level So we're still kind of playing off of the original ceiling heights. And you'll see as we move through the house that there's varying heights and some architectural angles that happen to achieve the vaulted kind of open air look. So we're moving into the living space in our home where we have it broken into two kind of separate spaces. An interesting thing about this space is it used to be a dining room in the old house with walls, so it's completely reconfigured. But the idea in this house was we wanted a lot of people to be able to gather. And we wanted some people to be able to watch TV or sports while others could also like enjoy a cocktail or just curl up. We actually fondly refer to this area of the house as the hotel. And that was inspired by the idea that it's almost built to be kind of like what you would see in a hotel lounge, where the seating is actually built into the wall, and then we had custom upholstery done to make it feel very expansive while still being cozy. So we kept the tone-on-tone feeling and then brought in beautiful large-scale black and white artwork, which is another theme in the house. And then had my carpenter build in this, it's actually made out of drywall, but it's to mimic a plaster shelving unit here, which just feels very, it's simple, and it allows us to do a little bit of styling, but without the bookshelf feeling of something being just kind of overstyled or too many things collected. So I wanted it to still feel clean and elevated, give a little chance for styling, but not too much. And then of course, one of the things that I love collecting are these funny sculptures and busts. So we have this little gentleman here who I've taken to every home for probably 15 years. And I find him so interesting, and people make fun of him, and he has a huge nose, and he's kind of, but I find him very very funny. And I think that's one thing about the way that I like to design is have levity. I mean, it's just, it's fun. It should be silly at sometimes, and sometimes it can be serious, but I love having an element of something that just makes you kind of giggle or makes you feel like, okay, they're not taking themselves too seriously. The other thing that I love to do is use vintage frames, and sometimes the frames are just the beauty themselves. So again, it's the like positive and negative space with the artwork, photography, frames. So kind of letting you kind of assume that this is the art. So this leather chair is really a piece that I found for a client and I loved it. And so I also got myself one. It is a sling chair. It is not the most comfortable chair. It is really meant for a perch. I would more think of it in terms of it's a bench. So you could sit here. You don't necessarily want to lay all the way back, but I love the ornamental and the sculptural element of it. So it's just one of those pieces that kind of just is art in itself, and it provides some function. And then this girl here is just we dress her up sometimes for holidays, so she might have a hat on or beads or different things, but she's just another whimsical bust. She's actually a reproduction, so she is not like one of these found items, but I find her so interesting, and her proportions are kind of funny and large, but again, like it's something interesting, and I found it. It makes me smile. One thing that I think was the driving force behind this design was obviously vaulting the ceilings and getting the space to feel unified. And the way that I did that was by doing the 3 pendant lights. So I feel like they're 2 spaces, but they're joined by the ceiling and by these pendant lights. I had them custom made and shipped here, and I found them. We did a sketch off of a we did a drawing off of a photo that I had found on Pinterest and had somebody make them, but they kind of tie the space together. And so it's created in a way, the center of the 2 spaces is kind of where the middle pendant can be its own little sitting area as well. But then, you know, architecturally getting these large 8-foot mirrors in has been, it really reflects the room. We lived without them for the first year and it just wasn't right. So I think this space has evolved and now it feels completely balanced and we can use all of the spaces. But as we move into the family room side of this space, this is kind of our day-to-day. This is where my husband and I do a lot of unwinding. We kind of did the 2 vintage inspired sofas, but they're not. They are new upholstery, but they have a really interesting line to them and they were the perfect scale for this space. And I loved that they were almost black. So again, they're kind of bringing in the texture and the leather while we have on the upholstery and the soft side of the room. This is kind of where my sofa, his sofa, watch TV, hang out, sit by the fire. We have Margot's bed here because she loves to sit by the fire, just like us. And so then we have these rattan chairs that have gone to many homes with us. And then these beautiful antique French oak occasional tables, which we were lucky to find in High Point a few years ago. And I feel like I collected them and had them in storage for a long time, and then they finally landed here. In this space, I think you'll see we have some very vintage footstool here that is imperfect, and that is a theme kind of that I use in design. And it's interesting because a lot of times clients will come into a space and they love the feeling of the space. And then when we want to recreate for them, they're not always a fan of going vintage because of the imperfections. So our job is to kind of talk through why we still love these pieces. So I love the imperfections and the kind of the untucked feeling of things that are not brand new. So that's just really dependent on the person, but definitely like to bring in things that have some wear and tear. And then now you can see that the stone facade kind of wraps the space, and we have the fireplace here, which is a nice expansive box. And we did, for something, a new touch, we added a plaster surround here. It was a brick surround, and it just kind of looked a little bit sad once we had everything lime washed. So I felt like this was the perfect kind of asymmetrical facade where we could add some plaster and kind of tie it into the countertops in the kitchen and kind of make it feel cohesive. But I love how this really turned out. Here, this beautiful Jamie Young fixture we chose because we knew that it was going to be centered up in the space, and we wanted something really that could stand the scale of this pitched vaulted ceiling, but not be too imposing. So the way it's airy and light, and it kind of hangs a little off, and I love that it has a lot of rough texture, and it looks like it could have been from any time. That's kind of it really took over the space without being too in your face. And then this is where we sit every day. This table has been beaten up, and I love that about it. And we light candles for breakfast. I feel like we just burn through them. I think they add so much warmth, and they make every little thing that you're doing when you're sitting together feel special. And we just let them drip right onto the table, and I just scrape them off with with a razor blade. You can't hurt it, and there's no problem. And they kind of tell a story, and the candles just build up. And I love, again, like how imperfect they are, and how they just really let you know that a lot of good times are had here. And then the chairs are one of my favorite things in this space. I love how edgy they are. I love that they're a little sexy. I love the chrome. They're vintage. I actually had to buy them from 2 different vendors on First Dibs because I got a set of 4, and then I was able to find another set of 2 to match. So it was a labor of love, but I love how they are juxtaposed with this very like rustic table. And then these are just so clean and simple. The chrome really pops in the space. And then we have the tulip chairs, which are kind of just traveled with us to every space, and they're always a classic. And actually people fight over them as opposed to the black chairs. I don't know why, but maybe they like the arms. But yes. The peace sign that you saw, that is traveled with us from many houses, and you can see one side of it is actually flattened where my son dropped it. And I actually think it's funny, so I just left it like that. But it's a nice kind of texture on top of this very textured white brick. And so the idea there was less is more. The brick is kind of telling the story. I didn't want to come in with a bunch of artwork or something a little too modern and then fight with the photography. So we went with this and kind of went understated on the peace sign. This is our the fireplace that is wood burning, and we love the smell of wood, and so we burn. We have stacks of it out in storage that we keep, and so we'll burn obviously mostly in the fall and winter, but yeah, we're not afraid to kind of burn a fire in the summer as well. It's just so cozy. Okay, and this is our kitchen. This is kind of obviously the heart of the home and my favorite space where I find myself most times. It's funny, when we started designing this house, I challenged myself to not use marble. I love marble, but I felt like in this mid-century house, it afforded me the opportunity to try something new. This is actually quartz, and it is, we kind of had it mitered and thickened up, and so it's called cloud cover, and it is one of my favorite things. It has texture to it. It looks kind of like a raw concrete, which is a Caesar stone, another one of their colorways, but this one has a little bit of texture. You can't hurt it. I use it, and I do a lot of baking too, so we just kind of mess it up and then we can just scrape it off, and it just takes a beating. But maybe what everyone would notice was this large foraged branch situation here. This changes on the weekly for me. It is one of my favorite things in the house. It brings me so much joy, and my kids make so much fun of me for putting something up in the middle of the island where you can't see anybody. But it makes me feel protected, and it just brings the outside in. One of the things that I love about this kitchen is what I spoke about before, where if there's a big pause sometimes in the creative process, I feel like it drives the risk taking. And I just knew in this kitchen I wanted it to have a wow factor, and I knew I didn't want certain things like corners. I didn't want to wrap this wall. Since this is an addition, this portion of the house is an addition, I wanted to make sure that we had strong visuals out to the pool. So we dropped these large windows down to the floor and kind of did that symmetry. But this piece, this black cabinetry, which is it is cabinetry, but it was a custom built, basically cabinet or armoire. We went really large scale on it, and just knowing that it was kind of going to be the wow factor, we did a black stain on the wood, so there's texture in the wood. And then I just thought, this is where we store all of our everyday dishes, all of our glassware, wine. I mean, it has space for everything. It also acts as a form of a pantry in some of the drawers. So it packs a punch. But visually, I think the balance of coming in and seeing this large black and glass with interesting styling and ceramics, it usually surprises people. And it's definitely my favorite thing here. And we don't keep it perfectly styled. Part of the charm of it is that we throw dishes in, and depending on who empties it and how they decide to place things, we kind of let it go. And I feel like that's kind of part of what makes it interesting, and again lends to that untucked feeling of nothing has to be perfect. If what you have kind of all relates, then it's all going to look good, whether it's spread across the counter or whether it's in the cabinetry. And then as you move into the kind of the workstation of the kitchen, I made a different choice. For this new oven stove range situation, we have the Mercury. I love it. There's no glass on the doors. It has a very Euro feel. The door opens sideways, a little dirty, but it has been super great. It's great for baking. Then the gas is perfect for cooking. And then we kind of did a nod to the Euro and the very kind of functional look of this brass pot rack, and displaying the copper gives you such a beautiful texture and shows that old world age that I love to bring into the space. And so I feel like that just kind of knocked it out. This was a late choice as well. Wasn't sure what I was gonna do here. I knew I wanted to do the Zelish tile, ungrouted. So again, has that kind of European flair that's just very kind of textural, but not perfect. And then blending that with these very modern brass sconces. I just love the way that they combine their styles, and then they kind of work off of each other, and then bringing in texture with the wood. And this is what I was talking about when we use a lot of neutrals, just having garlic when you cook and having it out, it is art. So I feel like having the things that you use in a kitchen displayed proudly versus hiding them all away, that's how I choose to live, and I think it's really beautiful. And we always use these cast iron pots, so I love having different pots out, just even, again, it's part of the charm, and the cutting boards and all the texture that it's brought in. We use them every day because when we take the bread out, then we put the bread on the cutting board and we have it out for the day. So this is a high functioning kitchen. We don't have a separate pantry, so we use this as a pantry for dried goods, and we also tuck away a little microwave in there. So I do love having that flexibility. And then the other side is it's not completely symmetric, but it does kind of fool the eye. And so then we have the large refrigerator here. And one of my favorite things also is this very casual element of having the little cafe curtains. Again, it's that nod to the European feel, but it's for things that we grab every day. And so we have some onions and some sweet potatoes and different things and then a little blender because we make smoothies a lot. So we can just pop it out on the counter, and then it also adds like a little bit of charm. I love that. So the bar stools in this area had to be very streamlined. You'll see this area is kind of expansive here behind the kitchen. And that is because part of what makes this courtyard special is that both sets of these doors open pretty widely. And so this becomes a real kind of walk-through area. And at night, when those doors are closed, they become mirrors. And that's where we dance. So we leave this open because we have lots of fun right here. The bar stools are just a black leather with a white oak. Very minimal, but yet bringing in the texture and kind of playing off of the black in the space. Wanted to kind of touch on it, but not too heavy. But we'll always use hits of black to kind of ground the space. This is a little nook that we have to also kind of enjoy the space and have a little warmth. And I love this little sconce here. It's a plug-in. I don't mind seeing the cord of it. I think it's super charming. It stays on 24 hours a day. It just always creates a nice little cozy space when someone's walking through. And then one of my favorite little imperfect French tables. It's completely cracked. I just think it's so romantic and lovely, and I love it kind of mixed with the texture of the chair and the sheepskin. Okay, and now we're moving into the breakfast room, which comes right from the side entry. It's kind of your first pass into the house. And this is that cozy space that I was talking about where we've brought in lots of vintage art and we sit here. This is where we'll have coffee, many times bring out our laptops and work. We've got natural light pouring in from an original skylight that was actually flooding light into the attic when we first got here. So we kind of grabbed all of that when we renovated and were able to kind of make this almost feel like a sunroom. And so we have plants in here. We bring in a ton of texture. This is where I've kind of allowed color to saturate, if you can call it that, but it's through the vintage art that I've collected. And it's, again, very kind of whimsical with it. And then we've also, matched it with the very modern tulip table. And then this beautiful brass. It's a vintage inspired, I would say almost like Hollywood glam light, but still so relative to all the natural kind of greens and plants that you're seeing from this room as you look out. So the palm kind of relates that back to the house. Again, this is the back side of the fireplace from the kitchen. So we have this beautiful textured original wall that is also still one of the favorites, and with a nice long vintage inspired mirror for everybody to get ready and check themselves before they head out to the mudroom. But vintage art, the lamps are also found, and then with new shades, they become new again. But like a little bit of a gallery inspiration here. And again, also as in the family room, we've had this seating built in and then custom upholstered. This chair to me is one of my favorites, so romantic. I found it just like this, didn't even recover it. I love, for me, this kind of mustardy yellow and ochre is a neutral. So it is repeated in every space, in every room. It's like a green to me. It's just one of those colors that is warm and inviting, but it doesn't, it's not too powerful or overwhelming, and it kind of works with all the other neutrals in the house. A garden statue. I love bringing these inside. I met a new friend when I went to Round Top, Texas, and she is modern antiquarian. And she definitely collects a lot of these like garden statues and also brings them inside. And I was really inspired by meeting her. And so as we move outside, you'll see some more of the kind of vintage garden feeling pieces. Another piece that's kind of just meant for outside, a planter, the plaster, modern shape of this. I love it. I also have one of these in my front entryway. So again, it's just got a really clean line that's interesting with texture. And then for the whimsical piece, this little kitty cat, ceramic cat, is exactly kind of a replica of the cat that we had for 15 years. And so I found her and just thought, oh, that's perfect. So again, kind of a little levity brought into the space. This room goes from morning to night, so breakfast and then evening. So here's our bar area, and I love the placement of this bar. First of all, as you'll see as we move through the house, this also is the visual as you move to and from the master suite. So this bar has this very kind of edgy, cocktaily feeling, but we've still brought in the vintage pieces and the garden metal pieces to kind of display liquor and things that we wanted to kind of showcase at the bar. And we've brought in all this vintage brass, and we're still kind of keeping things really balanced. And then this is an interesting story because one of those things, I wasn't sure how I wanted to finish off the bar backsplash, but I'm obsessed with black and white photography, and I like things that are strange. And it was a place to really collect that idea and make it cohesive and feel like wallpaper. I purchased wallpaper for this with all the intention of using it, and it just wasn't right. And so we kind of just threw that idea away, and I just started playing in here. And as I started playing and layering, I thought, okay, this is it. This is what the wallpaper is going to be. And you always see something new, and the kids, are always like, really, why? And I think it's funny, and then we just kind of have a thing about it. But I love, and then I kind of put an art light there as well to show, yes, this is art, and it needs no frame, but it illuminates really beautifully in the evening, and soft light is everything for me. So it's really subtle. This beautiful large scale lamp with the black shade. It just casts a really soft light, but love the juxtaposition of having the large lamp on a countertop. We have plenty of room, and then we have storage for, all the good stuff. And then we have the crunchy ice, the little ice. So that's a lot of people's favorite thing. In here, we've kind of given it its own identity, bringing in the vintage zebra cowhide. And then this chair, which is obviously unlike anything else in our house, but what I loved about this chair was the vintage leather. I love how kind of tattered it is and how much history it has. And so it just fits perfectly in the space. And it gives you such a beautiful sculptural line when you walk in, framing the window perfectly. And then a vintage light here. You're going to get so tired of me saying vintage, but we do buy new, but sometimes. But love repurposing when I can. And so this light, again, is very soft, and then we've brought and we kind of illuminate the plant, so it kind of glows in the evening. When you're looking out to the garden and the pool, there's no shortage of green there too, so just a little touch of that as you move inside as well. So let's step out into the terrace. This is one of our most favorite gathering spots, and what kind of inspired, as I kind of mentioned, what inspired us to wrap this house around this central area. Not only is it a beautiful dining area, but it connects both sides of the house, the kitchen, the living room, and it provides a perfect kind of vantage point to enjoy the pool and the lush green beyond. And the idea was that we're creating this romantic, kind of European inspired. We have the pergola that will grow in with tons of greenery. Got a vintage piece here that we picked up in High Point to act as a serving area or a bar. We've kind of done an unusual thing of bringing a mirror outdoors and bringing sculpture outdoor, just kind of treating it as I would any other space with the layering and the composition. And it's just worked out beautifully. My metal fabricator built this from a drawing that we did. And when we added this, we kind of brought travertine in to give it kind of that ageless historic feeling. And then we've kind of blended in these more modern pieces. We've got some mid-century chairs and then some more modern dining chairs. And then this very vintage-inspired settee that is just kind of romantic and lovely, but this is all shaded in the morning, so it creates a beautiful coffee spot or place to just kind of start your day. And pretty much the more green, the more floral, the better out here. And we've kind of framed up this terrace with this wild rosemary. I've used rosemary at every home that I've had. I love how it grows really organically and it takes on its own kind of sculptural feel. And we just let it go wild. And it really can't get too big for me. I love, love, love it. Moving down onto the pool deck now. This is kind of where a lot of the action happens with 3 kids and all of their friends. There's always action out here. So we kind of brought in these vintage inspired floats to kind of hang out here. So they're aesthetically pleasing, but also super fun for the kids. And we've got our lounge chairs that are very kind of modern CB2 lounge chairs. Can't damage them, can't go wrong. You can power wash them. But then we've kind of got a more whimsical and romantic umbrella, and then bringing in our vintage urns and filling them with evergreens. Just one more layer and depth to the green that can exist out here all year round. And Charlotte's pretty mild, so I mean, I would say we get a good 9 months use out of this space pretty regularly. We've brought in some of the same materials from the inside. We've used the stucco version of a plaster on the wall, and then we've created a hedge behind it. So again, just layering in the green and the depth for privacy. It's just worked great. So the pool this is a more modern pool than I've done in the past, and not modern in shape. I love a rectangular pool, but in the finishes with the lighter bottom, it's kind of a nod to that mid-century time. But then with a sculptural backdrop of a stucco wall to allow the waterfall. The sound of the waterfall is so soothing, and it drowns out any noise that you may have from the neighbors. But it's super lovely, and it can the kids can stand and jump off of this as well, which they do. So it's just a good time. This is another one of those pieces that I was talking about, an old garden piece. A friend of mine kind of introduced me to using, and I feel like it's natural patina and green of it. We'll just let it stay and let it kind of chip away. But this gets a lot of shade in the morning, so we'll also have a nice spot for coffee out here. But again, just like a more romantic play on the modern exterior. I love how it plays off of the stucco addition, and we blended all of that kind of into the white brick as well. So we've got plays with texture of materials as well as all the greens. The backyard, while it's large in space, the green space for grass was more limited with everything we wanted to achieve. So I think we got a nice green wedge here. Fun is something that I kind of touched on earlier, but we're a very competitive family, so we also love to play sports. We have a basketball in the driveway, and then we actually had my metal fabricator build this custom ping pong table for us maybe 10 years ago now at an old house. And we just love it so much. Again, he did it from a drawing. He's really genius, and it's really endured the weather. It was uncovered for years at our old house, but you'll see we have no shortage of ping pong paddles, and I'm the worst one in the family, let me just say that. But we do enjoy doing that out here year round. And we've actually had people ask us to have this built for them as well, because it's just such a unique look, and he did a really beautiful job. So now I'd love to take you on a tour of the pool house. This pool house kind of hits all the buttons. It serves as our guest room, our kids' lounge. It serves as my husband's office when he's not traveling. We have a gym in here, an auxiliary washer and dryer for all the pool towels and all of the pool wares. And the other trick to anytime you have a pool is having access to a bathroom. So there's a full bathroom in here as well that wet feet can just kind of hop right into without coming through the house. And we do have a 4-bedroom house with 3 kids, so this is our guest space as well. We have always had a Murphy bed, and we have a great Murphy bed here. And we have it worked out where you just pop it on down, And it's just, we make it, everything fits, and it's kind of the perfect solution for guests. And they get complete privacy, which they love. We make sure to stock their fridge. They have the Berkey. If you don't know about the Berkey, it's the ultimate water filter. We love it. We've done taste tests, and it actually is excellent. But we always have that for our guests. And then snacks. Yeah, and of course, no shortage of texture and green in here as well. Super durable sectional that's been with us forever. Cannot destroy it, no matter how hard the kids try. I grew up with a grandmother in new homes real estate, and my grandfather was a builder. So I was always exposed to real estate and home building and selling. And so I always had the bug. But you know, I was born in the 70s and went off to college and just thought you need to go to business school or get a normal job. I didn't really think of the creative careers until after college. I actually have a degree in finance, which I guess some people think has helped with the business side of things. I don't know. I think I'm terrible at finance, but that's okay. We have help for that. But yeah, I moved to, my husband and I met in college. We moved to Los Angeles actually for years after that, where I feel like I found myself. I kind of had the freedom to look at creative jobs and look at what I was really interested in. And I ended up starting or opening a boutique in downtown Long Beach that was home as well as fashion. It was kind of a blend. And so I think that's when I started getting my feet wet and saying like, oh wait, this is kind of where I belong. This is where I fit. And then the creative just kind of took over from there as I then renovated my first house. And so it kind of just evolved naturally out. And then my first child was born in Long Beach, and we ended up kind of feeling the pull back to the East Coast to be closer to family. And then of course, once we got to Charlotte, that creative spark was already lit. And so I was, you know, off to the races with our first house, renovating that. And then just, I think a lot of people maybe have had this happen, but it starts with your own personal house. And it was featured in a home tour in Charlotte and then published. And then from there, I just kind of started taking small jobs. And then just kept growing until I would say where I really kind of solidified the firm. I think I'm most inspired, not to sound cliche, but nature. I think, you know, the feeling of natural light, which I know that is something that, you know, if you have the luxury of being able to build or position your house for natural light, that's one thing. Other than that, I kind of, if a house doesn't get a lot of natural light, you can obviously create mood in different ways. But I would say foraging is one of my top favorite things in every space that I'm styling or designing. I always want to make sure we're bringing in plenty of greens and natural items to kind of, it's grounding for a space. And so I think those natural items are part of why I'm so drawn to neutral colors. I think bringing in greens and browns and golds and ochres and all of those colors that kind of exist in nature give me a sense of feeling peaceful at home. Not that I don't love, you know, colorful spaces, but where I prefer to live, I would say, is a neutral textured environment. And now we'll walk down into the master suite, where we also have a step down. This is an addition as well, and I wanted us to have a nice little entry so we didn't just kind of have a hard entrance into the master. So this gives us kind of a little bit of a buffer and a chance to make a beautiful space as well, where we've had this kind of modern grass cloth covered console layered with books and yummy sculpture, this beautiful vintage lamp, which I love how tattered kind of the chippy the paint is. It gives you kind of like a rusty color with a modern light. It's kind of all balanced out. And then you enter into the master bedroom, which I love this space. And you'll be able to see why, but it's a vast wall of doors to one side where we look out into the pool and the pool deck. But my theory on bedrooms is kind of less is more. So I see this space as a sleeping space, similar to my son's room. We set it up kind of as a hotel would be. So not too much space here, just the perfect amount for sleeping and a little place to perch. But then we've kind of maximized the space as you move into the bathroom. that kind of allows us to kind of pick up the square footage there. But in here, these doors are expansive. They open out into the pool as well. So it gets that kind of like in and out feeling. And because of the step down on this side of the house, we're able to be on grade with the pool decking. So I love that. It's just so easy to walk in and out. In here, the way we dress this bed is one of my favorite things too. I have this vintage fabric, this old crushed velvet, mustard velvet that I've had for almost 20 years actually, and it's worked in every house that we've had. We've got vintage art found in High Point, but then modern sign tables and modern lighting here, again balancing it out. I love the look of just a really untucked linen for the bed, no bed skirt needed when they're this long, and the kind of, and I love that this is back, but as a kid, I remember making a bed this way where you tuck the pillow and wrap it so it's not too fussy. We don't have a million pillows. It's just very simple and easy to make, and it still looks very romantic, and you can bleach it. So love that. Little swivel chairs here and this is really just a space for my husband and I. So this is where, like, if I'm getting ready, he can sit here and chat with me, and love the simplicity of that. And you see this is similar to the entryway table, but that kind of very chippy old French table. This one has more of a Moroccan shape. It kind of lends itself to that, but I just found this and loved it, and love how it kind of works with a more modern interior. You'll see again, as we move into the master bathroom, we've kind of did the French door situation just so we could have a more sprawling entry and make it kind of more cohesive, but the same treatment on all of these doors with the added trim and brass knobs just kind of gives it a little bit of flair. The master bathroom, I would say, is where we spend most of the time throughout this whole ensuite. My closet is off of this bathroom. We have great storage here for towels, so it becomes our own linen closet. We have two different vanities, his and hers, so we're not in each other's way. And then also to bring it back around, we did the full wall of mirrors, not to get fussy with individual mirrors. And so that kind of really kind of creates that illusion of such a large space. And then we've kind of layered the lighting on top of them, which is semi-difficult for different glass people to accomplish, but I love kind of the edgier look that it kind of lends itself to. And then we use that kind of unlacquered brass finish on the lights that kind of gets that age to it that I love. Bringing in a more traditional shaped light was another choice that I made later in the game. I love how this ended up. This is what you would see typically on an island or something linear. But what I love about it is it doesn't fight. It's not trying to be too massive in the space. It's quietly, but it's quietly kind of existing, but it creates such a beautiful visual when you walk in through the window, and it kind of just illuminates the tub area in a really soft way. And I do a lot of tubbing. So I love having that on and the doors open, and it still feels very private. You can look outside and be in the tub, which is another plus. So in this bathroom, what I did a little differently than the others that I've done in the past is that you don't see the shower when you walk in. And I really love how that turned out. It also makes you feel a little private when you're in the shower, but we had this opportunity to have this nice little hallway here to the water closet and let some natural light in. And then the shower just became its own little nook, and it's just like a spa retreat. I absolutely love it. And it gave us this focal point at the end of the hallway where we could have some sculpture. And I just think it's so romantic and absolutely love this. We've gone ahead and used the Zalige tile in the shower again to kind of repeat some of the same materials. One of my favorite things to do is to combine vintage pieces into a modern space. And this chair, the way it sets off the modern tub, and it's feminine line, but it has kind of a blackened stain on it that's aged, is so lovely. And then the casualness of the linen throw in here, which can be a wrap after a bath, just feels so romantic and effortless, but like ageless. So I love these textures of linen and rattan, and they're just adding depth into the space. And so it just seems like a quiet little chair, but it really has its own moment. This is my son Trip's room, and I was so excited to show him this when we originally found the house, because this architecture is original, this corner window. And I thought it was so charming the way that it wraps the room, and we were able to kind of dress the window so that he gets full privacy, but the way that it's a unique way that we kind of set up the room to make it feel almost like a hotel room. So it's very minimal, but it definitely has beautiful bright light. We can dark it out, but it really shows the original architecture. And then these original bedrooms, we kept the 8-foot ceilings here. And so again, we have the vault, we'd have some drop ceilings. So we kind of have a combination of things to make it all feel cohesive. His room, I feel, is so charming. It has this little built-in desk, which is still dressed the way we would in the rest of the house, meaning we have a little bit of natural, lots of texture. Of course, he's young, so he always has his things kind of, his technology and things here when he's home from school, but still giving it the character that I would in any space in the house. And then the ability to kind of clean it up really nicely and put all of his things away. We have enough storage there, and you'll see we have this rug by his bed just for kind of waking. Same kind of theme throughout the house. Kind of a vintage inspired light here, but with the brass. So again, kind of bringing in a more modern approach here. And we have some beautiful artwork that's vintage as well. One thing that you'll notice throughout the house is I wanted to have some fun with the doors. And so these were slab doors initially, where I had my trim carpenter add this design to all the doors to really give it kind of a uniqueness and make it feel, it still feels like it could have been original to the house. Now let's move on to the boys' bathroom. Okay, so this bathroom was exciting, and we definitely went all to the max on the mirrored wall. We mirrored behind the vanity, under, above, and around to kind of simplify, but also it's a tight squeeze. So we wanted to make sure that everyone kind of had a good, the good ability to get ready at the same time. But we have and we kind of shrunk up the vanity a little bit to make way for the hallway. We have this beautiful quartz countertop, but it's this beautiful kind of masculine look for the boys with the white oak cabinetry and floating vanity, again, to give the illusion of more space. Tied everything together with the brass lighting. I think it's just it has a masculine feel, but also very warm. And then moving into, we kind of did a nod to the original tile, which is the square ceramic tiles. And then we used a black pebble slate floor. We've dragged this from house to house, but we have this vintage ladder that I've had, and it was actually in their childhood bathroom as well. I love it for just a casual way to hang towels. Yeah, it's just kind of gives texture and warmth. And then same with the rug. I think adding in an actual runner or rug into a bathroom is so beautiful, as opposed to maybe just using bath mats and things like that. Again, it gives it kind of an elevated feel. And then the towels can be folded, and off to the side we have hooks that they don't really need to be seen, but something very elegant like a Turkish towel can be hung there, and I think it just kind of elevates the space. Again, I hate to sound cliche, but we've moved so many times, and my kids, some love it, some don't love it as much, the moving, but home is just where we are, where our family is. Good smells, baking bread, being together, laughing, playing games, karaoke. We do a ton of karaoke. So I feel like home is just having the warmth of all of us being together and keeping it a little lighthearted, because life gets so heavy. So I think this is a place where we come and we can just kind of, hunker down and just be together. And that could be anywhere, and it has been, so. But for now, it's here at the Cloisters. So.
Thank you so much for joining me this morning, Homeworthy. It has been an absolute pleasure. I've got a few projects to get back to, but can't wait to hopefully see you again soon. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.